All right, guys, Mr. Waltz here. Hey, we're going to be looking at multiplying a decimal by a decimal today. And we're going to do it with modeling, as you guys can see here. I know you're like, yeah, he's got a model up. That's awesome. I can't wait to model. Yeah. Hey, before we start with decimal modeling, I want to just flash back to a time where we had fraction modeling. Now you're really getting excited. I could feel the energy. Hey, when we modeled multiplying a fraction times a fraction, like a half times a half, we created a model that looks something like this. First thing we did was we represented a half. And then we shaded that half. So I'm going to grab a different color here. And we would shade it like this. And then what we said is, because the multiplication symbol means of, we were going to shade half of that half. So then we would cut this in half, and we would shade half of that half. So let me grab a different color here. That would look like this. And then I would ask the question to you guys, okay, if we shade half of a half, how much did we actually shade? So the only part of a half, the part that's double shaded, would only equal one part out of 1, 2, 3, 4 parts. So that would be 1/4. So a couple things to notice here. When we did a part of a part, the answer got smaller because that's half of a half. So the answer actually got smaller. Well, when we do decimals today, when we multiply decimals, it's exactly the same concept. So let's take a look at that really quick. So we just did multiplying fractions a half by half. Let's try it with decimals. A half by half in decimals will just look like this. Half of a half. All right, now let's go model it. What this really says, though, if we want to talk in decimal sense, is 5/10 of 5/10, right? So just like fractions, half of a half, let's shade 5/10 or a half. Here we go. I'll start off by shading 5/10. There's 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, 5/10. Very good. So I did that 5/10. Now let's shade 5/10 of those 5/10. So just like fractions, now we're going to go in the other direction and start shading 5/10 the other way. Here we go. 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, 5/10. So now what I did is 5/10 of 5/10. And now let's see how many are actually there. In order to do that, I'll have to count. Here we go. I got 5. Now those 5 are not tenths, are they? Those are hundredths. So there's 5 hundredths, 10, 15, 20, 25. So 25 of them are double shaded or half of a half, so our answer would be 25. Okay, now that's not just 25 though, is it? And it's not certainly not 25 tenths either, because when we think about each one of these little guys over here, each one is a hundredth, so that would be 25 hundredths. So remember, when we just modeled the fraction and we did a half of a half, we got a fourth or a quarter. Now look what we did in decimals. We did a half of a half, and we got a quarter or a fourth or 25 hundredths. Notice that they're the exact same answer. 25 hundredths is equivalent to 1/4. They're samesies. All right, so if you rely on what you did in fractions to help your mind with decimals, I think you're really going to do great. All right, let's try another problem. All right, you guys, so for this one, I think it'd be a really good idea if you went ahead and paused the video, got some lined paper, any kind of paper you want, and did this one with me. The reason why I like lined paper is because they already provide you with lines going this way. The only thing you have to do is make 10 lines going this way, and you could have a grid that looks like mine. All right, so go ahead and pause the video now and get some scratch paper. Okay, I hope you actually got scratch paper and you actually paused it and you're doing along with me. It will only help you. It won't hurt you. Of course, I can't come through the computer screen and check and make sure you're doing it, but that'd be cool if I could. That'd be a sweet superpower. Anyways, okay, so for this problem, let's do 2/10 of, remember multiplication, decimals, fractions, really anything means of. Let's do 2/10 of 8/10. If you're feeling like you got this, you could do it, and you want to go ahead and start shading, go for it. Pause the video and try it. If you need a little step-by-step help, maybe just go right along with me. You know what? I'm going to erase those guys, and I'm going to write them properly. That would be 2/10 of 8/10. We always want to put that 0 there, right? Okay, now if you want to pause it, go ahead. If you want to keep going right along with me, that's great. 2/10 of 8/10. First thing you're going to want to do is shade the 8/10. Go ahead and try that. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Great. So we shaded our 8/10. Now, of those 8/10, we need to shade 2/10. So we're going to do 2/10 of 8/10. So go ahead and pause it, shade your 2/10. Okay, it should have come out looking something like this. 1/10, 2/10. All right, next thing you need to do is count them all up and see how many tenths or hundredths or thousandths you shaded to find your answer. Go ahead and count them up now. All right, you should have counted up 8 here and 8 here, so your answer would be 8 plus 8 is 16. Now keep in mind that it is not 16 holes. That would be ridiculous. 2/10 of 8/10 is 16 holes. What? Those are each not holes or tenths. Those are not each holes or tenths. Those are each hundredths. So there should be 16 hundredths. All right, let's do one more, and then that will be it for today. Let me get a new board started here. So one thing you'll notice here is this time I have 2 grids. So immediately in your mind, you must be thinking, hey, this answer is going to be more than 1, because why else would he have 2 grids here? And you'd be right. All right, again, I'd love it if you'd paused it and tried along with me. If you don't, that's your choice, but I think it would certainly help you. Okay, for this problem, let's do half or 5/10 of 1 and 7/10. So the first thing you need to do is model that 1 and 7/10. Go ahead and pause it and do it now. Okay, there it is. Hopefully you modeled 1 and 7/10 like I did. That would be one whole thing and 7/10 of another one. All right, now what we want to do is go ahead and model the 5/10, or half of the 1 and 7/10. Go ahead and pause it and do it now. I'll do the same. And there it is. Hopefully you shaded half of this one and half of this one. Or instead of saying half, we could say 5/10 of each one. All right, here's the hard part. Now we got to count them all up. I'm not really going to actually sit here and count, because I know that half of this hole is 50, right? Half of 100 hundredths would be 50 hundredths. So I know that I got 50 here. Now I just got to count up what's left here. So let's see, this would be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 14, 21, 28, 35 over there. So I got 50 here, and I got 35 over here. So as you predicted, I'm sure, our answer would be 50 plus 35 would be 85 holes. Oh, what? We don't have 85 holes here. We only have, it's got to be less than 2 holes, because we only started with 2 holes, so it's got to be less than 2 holes. So I think what I'm saying is I have 85 hundredths. 85 hundredths. And that makes sense to me too, because half of 17 is about 8, isn't it? So half of 1 and 7/10 is about 85 hundredths. That makes perfect sense. All right, you guys, that's all I got for you today. Make sure your answers are reasonable, logical. Make sure you don't have 85 holes there. That would be silly. Make sure it's 85 hundredths. That would make more sense. Have a great day. We'll see you later.